Good morning. Good morning, people. How are you today? This is your girl, Denise LaSalle Williams. Amen. And I am coming to you today because I want to just educate you in a little something. So let me get started. Today is Thursday, June 4th at 10:44 a.m. Okay. So, my people, we have had, let's just say, a week of, will soon be a week of our peace, right? Our riot, our peace, your walk. You did your peace, you did your walk, you stood for something that America needed, right? And you stood for something that you truly believed in, right? And the main thing that you stood for was the fact that our African American man that had his life taken from the breath of his body because of a white supremacist, right? It doesn't matter what business he come from. It doesn't matter if he's a cop, a judge, a lawyer. It doesn't matter if he was a police officer or just an average civilian. The fact still remained that an African-American man's life was being destroyed. Even if it had been a white man, it's still that it was a life that was taken only because of a little check or little money. Okay? So, people, let me tell you something. In order for us to have change in our lives, right? We want society to change, but we don't want to change. Okay, I'm not saying it just for the African American community. I'm not saying it for the white community. I'm saying it as a whole. Change has to begin within us, right? And the reason I'm saying that change has to begin with us because we are so fixated that what the white man didn't do for us, what the white man didn't do that for us, when the black man didn't do this for us, the black man didn't do that. Instead of pointing fingers, we need to be able to sit and check ourselves. The Bible tells us to examine ourselves. All right. Yes. In the early years, when white folks were coming in and Europeans came into America, right? When they came into America, they stole our land. They stole things that we built, right? And we couldn't get our ideas and things patented because we didn't have the money. So they stole that from us to claim it as their own. So now we are fighting just to be able to have something that's in this world. So my thing is this. Why should we as African Americans or minorities have to fight for something that we built? Blacks built the White House. But we can't live in the White House because why? Because of the color of our skin, right? They don't think we're smart enough. They don't think we're good enough. They don't think we're intelligent enough to be able to live in the White House. And I'm not saying to live there to be able, you don't even have to live in the White House. You can have another house on the side, but it's a place of office and business. They don't think that we're good enough to be mayors and senators and governors. They don't think that we're good enough to be in high office or doing things or owning our own businesses. And if you notice, a lot of the African-American businesses were being destroyed. And it's not just, the average people that come out there to protest when they was going out there to do for what they were doing for war for right, that we see officials that supposedly be on top, destroying the black businesses, throwing bricks to break the business, putting signs up the Black Lives Matter. And you know what? They did that because so they could make black people look bad and say that we're doing that. Don't get me wrong. We have some of our own people doing things. So let me explain something to you all. Prejudice and racism. I'm going to ask you that question. Is prejudice and racism the same? Or are there some differences in there? Because we could say that prejudice, we call somebody prejudiced or we call somebody racist. Or do they have some of the similarities or do they have some differences? And when did it begin? Because everything that we are doing, the Bible says anything that was done is nothing new under the sun, which means these things have been done for years and years and years during our great-great-great-grandparents, right? Long before we were even born. In fact, if you want to really take it to the Bible, these things that happened in the Bible days. So, according to this, okay, y'all see this? All right, y'all may not see this. It says prejudice and racism, and it was by, I'm going to tell you, and this book was by James Jones from Harvard University. All right. So I'm going to read something to you. It's called Prejudice and Racism by James Jones from Harvard University. And I want you to listen to this because you all need to know the difference between prejudice and racism. And I'm going to go into why I'm saying what I'm saying. All right. So, all right. We asked the question, what is prejudice? All right. We know that the term prejudice is used by many people in many different ways. Some use the term to indicate petty, sometimes arbitrary, but generally quite personal dislike. So a person can be prejudiced among you because they dislike you. They don't have to know you. They just like, oh, I don't like her. It's just like some of you will go out there and look at that fat girl, look at that big girl, look at that cross-eyed girl, look at that boy. You're being prejudiced among them. You don't even know them. You're using it in a way to discriminate in a person without even getting to know them. All right. It says, ethics prejudice is an antipathy based upon faculty and inflexible generation. It may be felt or expressed. It may be directed toward a group as a whole or toward an individual because the member of that group. So what does that mean? That means that you discriminate somebody based on their group and their ethnic background. Just like we would talk about Muslims. There are different types of Muslims. But because you get on the plane or you in the area where you see a Muslim person have their hair wrapped or covered the face, the first thing you do is automatically judge them that that's a Muslim, that's a bad person. Every Muslim is not bad. It's not what they look like on the outside, it's who they are on the inside. But you went ahead and judged them. Okay? It's the same thing with African Americans. Caucasian people judges us based on our group. The first thing that they say is, if that all black people steal. If one black man steal out the bank, they say that all blacks steal. If one black person live in a low-income housing, they say that all blacks should be there. Or all blacks that live in low-income housing are uneducated or don't have no sense or common sense or anything. They figured that. All right? So, it says each individual, of course, belongs to a specific reference group, but the system of group position referred to by Bloomer and the consequences of social comparison process within a given group. The problem of prejudice follows from using the standard of one's own group and comparing themselves to someone else or another group. So the same thing. They feel that because they're white, they got privileges. Because they feel like, well, because our color, skin, and mixer get these privileges that we can do. And then when they feel for blacks, they feel that because we're black and African American, black and brown people, that one person makes a mistake, everybody makes them. One person do drugs, everybody do. And it's the same in the Caucasian family. They feel that one man goes out there and murder his wife, then all white men gonna do that. Because we're judging people based on their level. We even feel like because you feel like all blacks cannot comprehend. All blacks do not belong in Harvard or other Ivy League school like Stanford or Penn State. You feel like that black people are uneducated, they can't pass the SAT, and that's not true. And then you feel like because that's the way Caucasians feel about us. We feel like because you're a Caucasian, you got your way in the door, and that's the only way we can do it, and that's why we work twice as hard to get what we need. Okay, so that's on prejudice. Now, let me tell you what racism is. Racism, according to Van den Berg in 1967, attempts a rather specific definition of racism, which he defines it as a set of beliefs that organic, generally transmitted differences, whether real or imagined, between human groups, are intrinsically associated in the presence or absence of certain socially relevant abilities or characteristics. Hence, that such differences are a legitimate basis of envious distinction between groups socially defined as races. So what they use, so we judging ourselves, our color of our skin, that's race, our ethnic background. Okay. Now, let me explain something else to you. Let me read something else to you, right? because this has been going on for years. This is not something that been just done overnight, because you are marching for something just recently. All right. So, do you all know what Wall Street really is? Some of you all think that Wall Street is just an accounting business. You all think because it's about the numbers, you want to get there, and it's accounting, it's a business, the marketing, it's the Dow Jones and all that. Yes, that's the way it is now. But did you realize, right? That's why I said this stuff didn't just start now. This racism and all of that been back then for years. Let me explain to you what New York Times, Wall Street really is. Okay. It says, the recognized center of American finance, Wall Street in New York. But do you know the original function of Wall Street? It is served as a market for the sale of Negro slaves. So, back in the day, we used to take Negroes out there and like you auction them. You ever seen The Color Purple when the father, the Mr. wanted Nettie, and the father said, well, you can't have my Nettie, but you can have my Celie. Well, I ain't never seen Celie before, right? So father went out there and brought Celie out, and he had her turning around, looking her up and down and auction on. That's what did happen to the slaves. So Wall Street was actually a slave business. Okay. It said, to be sure, one can also see advertised in the New York Times the sale of Englishman Cheshire cheese and few Welshmen, but predominant comedy at the Wall Street market in 1711 was Negro slaves. That's what Wall Street was. Yes. So what's the great American lie that we were told? Freedom, equality, and justice. Praise the Lord and past administration. Praise America, but lynch them a nigger. The country was born in revolution against the tyrannic oppression, while black people were at the very moment being tyrannic oppressed. We are taught in school that George Washington was the father of our country. For many blacks, he was probably the father of one of their slave ancestors. This is a place in Philadelphia called the Independence Hall, where one can go and see the crack in the Liberty Bell. So, George Washington, how can a white man, George Washington, be the father of our country, right? When God created this country. God created the earth, because the Bible said in the beginning he created the heavens and what? And the earth. And the earth was without form and void. And so our foreparents, Adam and Eve, we don't even know what color they were, but they want to say that this is a white community. Now, I'm not prejudiced against a Caucasian, because I have Caucasian as my doctors. All my doctors are Caucasian. All my professors in college were Caucasian. I thank God to the highest for them. But you have those that make it bad for those that are out there that are doing the right thing. And we need to know, what are we oppressing for? What are we marching for? So, before we, even as African Americans, before we can start judging anybody else, and before we could go out there and try to correct something, we have to correct ourselves. And what do I mean by that? Don't you know that prejudice and racism is in our own environment, as well as we are against white and black? I'm going to point this out to you. Let me tell you what. Okay, you said that we just read that prejudice, right? You could judge a person about one person by a group of people, right? And racism is born in ethnic background, based on you saying because all Muslims are bad, all Muslims are killers, all black people want to do is steal. You see where I'm going? We're doing the same thing that we are telling them to do. So before we can get that right, we have to get ourselves right. Right? So let me explain something to you. Listen, people. You do the same thing, and I'm going to show you how you do the same thing. People have been fighting for years that have children that are special needs. Oh, yes. We got children out here that are deaf, hard of hearing, either deaf and blind, or if you see a blind person or a person that's deaf and mute, I'm going to explain something to you about deafness, okay? Because I was born deaf in my right ear, severe deaf in my right ear. I never be able to hear in my right ear, but I was lost partial of 30% of my hearing in my left ear in 2003, but I could talk. You see, there are people that have gotten meningitis or pneumonia that causes their immune system to affect other parts of their body that can cause them to lose their hearing. But they were being able to hear before. That's why they're able to talk. So if you ever see a person that's totally deaf but can talk, don't get shocked. They be like, wow, but you can talk, but you can't hear me. That's because they were able to hear words then before they became sick. Or if it's a mute deafness, deaf person, a person that's totally deaf and mute means they can't talk at all. And so when a person makes vocals, meaning they go, noise like that, you laugh at them. You pick at them. You do the same thing you talk about a white man doing when they say that about us. Instead of helping them, instead of working with them, you go against them. You think that because every deaf person is dumb. You think that every handicapped person that has special need or have physical disability that you can see and disability on the inside. What you don't even realize is that some of you all have a disability too, but you don't want to acknowledge it. And it don't have to be physical. You can have a learning disability. You can have dyslexia, right? Some of you can have all kinds of problems, but you don't want us to know about it, right? Because you put on this front like you better than the next man. Oh, you feel me? You feel that because of a person that is deaf or hearing impaired or disability challenge, that they are beneath you. The same way you talk about, the white man talks about Caucasian, say that about us. Men, you do the same thing with a woman. Because she's not beautiful the way you want. You're looking at the outer appearance. It's not her hair. It's not her teeth. It's not her looks. It's not her outer appearance. That does not define who she is. It's her heart of who she is. But see, you love the outer. And see, when you talk about a beautiful queen, you don't care about the beautiful queen. You like, this is the queen, right? But you don't care about them. You get what you want. When you done got what you want, that's it. And then you go on to the next woman that you think is a beautiful queen. See, a king, when he loves his queen, he do not go out and mess with somebody else. And the same thing, you don't go out there and have sex with a 12 or 13 or 14-year-old child when you're 30 years old. We already know that's first of all, adultery. Second of all, that's rape and molestation of a minor, right? But you got a wife. And if you don't have a wife, and I hear a lot of black men say they'd rather be with a light-skinned woman, red-bone woman, white women, because that bring out the beauty of them. That bring out the man in them. No, honey, the man that was brought out you from the very beginning when you were born in this earth by God. When your parents brought you here. A woman don't bring you out. But you see, let me explain something to you. It's just like this phone here, right? I'm going to show y'all something. It's just like this phone. You and I grew up together. We both had a track phone that you think is beneath, right? While we was having a track phone, everything was fine. Then because you got a little job or something or a little business or a little better, you moved on to the Apple phone, right? Because this is Apple. So you think that I'm beneath you if I still got a track and you got Apple. Because I hear a lot of you say, oh, look at them. They don't want nothing. They ain't trying to get nothing. They ain't trying to get this and that. But you forgot. You started out with that track phone life, right? You started out in the projects. You started out in low-income home. Even if your parents had a single home, you started out with rice and beans and pork and beans. You started out with the potatoes. You started out with the hogs. You started out that life with me. And then when you got up to another level, you think that you are better than the next man. Until you get yourself into some trouble, then you call them back on the on that track phone life. That's right. The minute trouble hit, you call back on your black women to help you and support you. The minute trouble hit, you calling on mama. The minute trouble hit, now you want somebody to vote for you and support you to get you to a level that you're not even going to think about us when we get out there. Let me show you something in the Bible. In the Bible, right? Joseph was sent to Egypt all because of his brothers. Okay. They didn't realize what God had already had a plan. But when Joseph was sent into the captain of the guards, two people that was in there with Joseph, the cupbearer and the baker, right? Although Joseph was a gifted prophet, he spoke a prophecy that God had gave him. He didn't spoke something that was out of his head, that it didn't come from him, right? So each one of them had a dream. And Joseph told the cupbearer that the day was going to come in 3 days. You will be returned back to your position that where you was from the beginning. But don't forget about me. Y'all feel me? When the baker, God gave the baker his revelation through Joseph. He told him that in 3 days, he saw when he told him about the birds that was eating the bread of the basket, because the baker was about bread. He was baking, he was cooking. He told him about the birds. He saw the birds eating out this basket. He told him in 3 days, you're going to be hanged. But he didn't like that because it spoke of the truth, right? But in 3 days, the king did hang him, right? But remember, the cupbearer didn't remember Joseph, didn't remind him to get him out. It wasn't until later, when Nebuchadnezzar, his own workers, the people that he had in there, just like Trump, you got people in there have no knowledge of this government system, has no knowledge, but they're just in there. So he had people that couldn't read the stars. He got astrologers. He got dentists. He got architects. He got all kinds of things. And the king said in his word, he said, if you could count the stars in the sky, you shall live. But they didn't have knowledge to do that. He even told them, if you can tell me my dream, that means to give me revelation of my dream. They didn't have anointing to do that. So it was the baker, it was the cupbearer that reminded him that, yes, there was a Hebrew boy that was in the cell with us. And when they brought that Hebrew boy, the only person that can save Nebuchadnezzar or to save his life was Joseph. And that was when Joseph became second in command. But you see, like I said, we so busy picking at anybody and everybody else, but we forgot about the people we left behind. The minute we get a little something, I understand you got people that don't want nothing, not trying to get nothing. Even when you try to help them, they don't want to help themselves. I understand that, because you can only help us so many. But what I'm saying is, when you get to a place when you think you are better than the next man, don't get to the point that you're better than them, because you have to never know. It's easy to climb up, but it's a hard pill when you have to fall. Okay? You doing the same thing that you talk about what's going on now, that you are marching for. If you're going to march for right, yes, this young man's life was taken from him. We ought to stand for that. We ought to stand and not let them do that to us. If we do wrong, then we do wrong. If we tell our kids, if you go into the store and you know you don't have no money, stay out that store. Or if you're going to buy something, buy what you got to buy and leave it alone. You don't need a bunch of friends to hang with to go do what you got to go do. Because sometimes when your friends steal, then they'll get you too, because you've been in the environment, right? But even though that we may do something wrong, that doesn't give them the right to use excessive force on that black man. All because of a $20 fake dollar bill or fake check. You don't know whether somebody gave him that money and he didn't think nothing of it. So when he goes to the store, he paying the bill, and now the store clerk sit there and call the police. First of all, some of y'all that walking while black, driving while black, hanging while black, talking while black, we got to stop all that about all this, what we could, we black, we can't have a life. We can't even, they have a problem with our booty. They have a problem with our hair. They have a problem with our nose. They have a problem with anything that we do. What are we supposed to do? We were brought into this world like normal people. We came in this world from the womb of our mothers, right? But they forgot. They came in this world too. Jesus never told them that a certain way they're supposed to be looked. He made them just the way he wanted them. Even the Bible said that when Jeremiah said, I'm just a child. And God told him, stop saying that you're just a child. It was I that created you in the womb of your mother. And that the words that I give you, the words that you speak are the words that I'm going to give you. Even when Jonah was thrown in the water, right? You all do the same thing. Well, this boat is rocking. White folks are doing like this. Boat rock, we got to get this nigga off. But it was God that saved that black man. You know, even though to the Floyd family, we praying for you. We praying for you because it is wrong. But you know what? Although Mr. Floyd is gone, he got kids that's still here. Some of you didn't even think about those kids that are being traumatized and beat. You know, they got to go to school in the fall, and they're going to be tortured about that. And then you know what? If this is going to take some time for this racist epidemic to get to the point where we can be together. Because not all black people are bad people. Not all black people live in poverty. And even we all live in poverty doesn't mean because we're in poverty that we are bad people. And not all white folks are bad either. But what the problem is, these kids are going to face two sets of people. They're going to face the Caucasian family, and they're going to face her own people. Are going to say things to them. Oh, well, your daddy died. That's why your daddy did. These kids don't need that. Our kids don't need that. So if we want to make a difference in the next generation, we're going to have to start doing it now. Caucasian people, we're gonna have to start. Your Caucasian, you got to start talking to your kids about racism. You got to start talking to your kids about prejudice because it happens in your own family, not because of a different color. They are taught. Your ancestors was taught that. They were not born that way. No baby came out of my mother's womb talking about ooh Negro, ooh hunky. Ooh, Caucasian. They don't talk like that. They are born, when they came to this world, they are born to be taught to race. Do you know that in places like Afghanistan and Guyana and all of them, they teach their kids at an early age how to hold a gun instead of teaching them how to play with cars and robots and different things. They teach their kids that. Our kids, we have the opportunity to get an education. We have an opportunity to make a difference in our lives. You know, when I was reading this book in I think it was in 1915 and 1916, they took a black woman who was pregnant in this same book. And I was shocked about it. She was pregnant. This is how this all stuff started. So you all think whatever's going on now is just starting? No, people, this is back in years. A black woman was pregnant. They hanged her on a tree and they poured gasoline on her. Gasoline, soaked her in gasoline and burned her. And they took a knife and cut her stomach open and kicked the baby out. The same thing that's happening in America. The same thing that's happening in America. So when you see somebody that may be a little different than you, that may not have the same color skin as you, or maybe if they are the same color, we should be our brother's keeper. Whether you're Caucasian, whether you are African American, we should be our brothers and sisters keeper. But we not, because you know why? We so busy worrying about trying to hold on to those material things. Who got the better car? Every time you look around, stopping while black, because you see a black man got a little car, a little money, you save your money like everybody else. And just if you're a cop and you've been there for 30 years on the force, your income could have been saved to get the same thing. But it's not that. It's the fact that you don't want to see black people have it. Why can't we as African Americans have businesses? Why can't we own a dentist's office or hospitals, a bank? Why can't we more than just beauty salons and hair salons and nail technician salons? We're more than that. Why can't we, run an airline? In Atlanta, they have it, but I'm talking about all over the United States. Even in the Civil War, World War II, blacks were not even allowed. Did you know that? We're not even allowed to fight in the war. But now you want it to be there only to make you look good. Why can't we? We are intelligent. And in the old days, when Harvard University came out, Stanford and all these other Ivy League schools, they didn't even want black people in there. But now, in order for them to get the funding they need us. We have to work twice as hard to get that, and we shouldn't have to do it. We should be equal. Just like they want to come into the black historic schools, we should be able to go in their schools. And all of this is just education. All of this is just education. People, we have to stand up for what's right, and we have to start doing these things ourselves. Just like I'm going to say this, and some of your parents might get offended. Your kids are studying about going to school. Right now, during the summer, it's okay to play. It's okay to have fun. But let me tell you something. They were playing ever since February when they closed the school down. February or April when they was closed the school down. That was the time to homeschool your kids. That was the time to get the Bible and start bringing prayer back to school. That was the time to learn about history. That was the time to learn about science. You know, you all could get together and do a science model together. The kids might learn. You see, you get them paired. Then they can have the rest of the day to play. You know why? Because when they get ready to go to school in the fall, if they open up school, your children will already be set. But we don't want to do that. We want to give them the 3 months that they're going to be out for the summer, plus the other time that they missed when they weren't in school. That's right. So it has to start with us. And that's when the white man don't want to give us nothing. That's maybe true, but we work at it. The same thing you said they don't want to give us. We don't want to give each other nothing. We don't want to support the black businesses. We don't want to be able to help one another. We always want this. We should be networking. We should be helping one another. We should be talking to each other instead of discriminating. And now, because of this riot all over the country, it is going to bring us together. But it's going to take some time. It's going to take time, but it's going to have to start with us. One little at a time, little by little. Evelyn, that's right. Hold on to the Floyd family in prayer because they need it. Their kids need it. You know? It's not about because he had a Caucasian wife. It's not about because, you know, how great and generous. It's about the legacy he left behind. And we should be that to that level too. And also, we have to think about those kids because we have kids too. We have to be able to stand for the next generation. Some of us are already grandparents. We have to think about the grandchildren. We don't want to bring our grandkids back in that same mess. So, again, people, let us start with us. It goes even in the church. Some of you know, you favor people. As long as they give them the right time money, right little money, or they dress a certain way, you welcome them. The Bible says you don't take a person that have shabby clothes and tell them to sit on the floor, but a person that have a good suit, you said sit here. We don't do that. We have to love one another despite of. We're supposed to be accept one another, regardless of whether they have money or not. Regardless. And even if Trump don't do, we can do. We can come together. I need y'all to help me so we can come together. See, I'm for the children. You know why I'm for the children? Because I'm the type of person that I've always grew up that I've always wanted to do something that's going to help the children. And I'm for the kids because I don't want to see the kids go through what I went through, especially young girls. I don't want to see them go through that. But we have the opportunity to make a change. So I want y'all to pray for the Floyd family. And there's time and hour. They're going to have a memorial, so I think tomorrow or whatever. But when that family get ready to have to bury their loved one, you got to think about yours. Think about me, think about you, think about them. Right? And pray for them kids. You'll pray for your kids. Pray for the next man's kids. Let us come together and join in unity. So I love all of you. And the next time you all talk about prejudice, get your history book and learn about how history started, how prejudice all started. And that Great American Lie about freedom for all and equality, no, that's not even happening right now. But we can start change. We can make a change. It's going to take some time in you, just like this pandemic. That was another thing. That's something that's trying to twist us to keep our mind focused on what's really happening. So Trump, we need to still be knocking on his door. We need a vaccine. Because we need to stand up for something that's right. So I love all of y'all. And I thank you for being here for me and supporting me. I don't care if it's one or two people, it doesn't matter. The Bible says one can chase 1,000, two can put 10,000 to flight. The Bible also said 1, 2, or 3 gather in his name. Yep, we can catch a mighty flow. That's right. So it doesn't take a whole crowd. It could just be 2 or 3. Jesus will be in the midst. When 2 and 3 come, he will be in the midst. So I love y'all. Now you all gonna have your breakfast and your cappuccino and your donuts, and hug your kids for me. Kiss them. Tell them how much you love them. All right. If they fall away, get on the phone and call them and tell them, say, Aunt Denise said to tell me to tell you that she loved you. All right. Because I love all of you and I love your kids too. You know, I may not know them, but hey, I love these kids and I want to see them prosper in life.